Hey, good evening, everybody. It is Tuesday, August 8th. It's about 6:36 my time in the evening. You can kind of tell by the shadows and the sunshine coming in. This is west. Of course, I got a big office window here, so you can see the sun shining in. And it was a beautiful day today. Humidity seemed to be down. It did get warm, but the humidity wasn't bad, and it was a pretty nice day. So one that if you had a chance to be outside, that was probably a pretty enjoyable day. I wanted to do another installment of Job in our Bible reading plan today. And I mentioned to you before that we should read Job 4 through 7. So that's what we'll talk a little bit about tonight. And then for our next reading, we'll do Job 8, 9, and 10. And I'm kind of dividing these up right now by different speeches. And you'll know I mean, you could tell from 4 to 7 why that's a good split point right there. And same holds true now for 8 through 10. So the next time we get together, uh, take a look at 8 through 10 and we'll discuss it. Once again, I want to encourage all of you then to as you're following along, that as you read the comments in the section below the video, that that if you have comments, sure, ask you to share those with us. One of my goals, I think I've mentioned maybe several times already, is that our desire is to create a community here, and so that we're sharing what strikes us in the readings. What is it in the readings that maybe we've never seen before? What is it in the readings that oh, we've heard that and it confirms for us what we thought? But Scripture works like that. We can read something over and over and over again, and then when we read it the next time, there's something new that jumps out at us. And so that happens for me all the time. So I look forward to learning from you just as much as you learn from me. So feel free to drop a comment in the box below, and I encourage you to comment on other people's comments as well. So we're all learning together here. And of course, a reminder that this is a chronological reading plan. And so as we read now, we are reading in the chronological order in which the events would have occurred. And so I think we read up to Genesis 11, and now we jump to Job, and we're going to read the entire book of Job before we get back into early Old Testament stuff here. So that being said, we have in our text for tonight, in 4 through 7, the first speech of Job's three friends. The speaker is Eliphaz. He may have been the oldest of the three of Job's friends. Uh, just some of the things he says leads us to believe that that could be the case. He draws on his experiences to make some points, and he may have been a little bit older than the other two that will speak as we go along here. But once again, one of the things that strikes me as Eliphaz begins to speak. Now we have to remember that Eliphaz and Bildad and Zophar, the three friends, they sit with Job for a whole week without saying a word. So they just sit there with him, we would call that today a ministry of presence. How many times haven't you said, I'd go visit somebody or I'd call somebody on the phone, but I don't know what to say? You know, like maybe even after somebody dies. I go visit them, but I don't know what to say. Well, here's a great example of what you could do. You could just go and be there. And, and, and I can tell you that 9 times out of 10, or maybe even a greater percent than that, that's really all a person needs is for somebody to just be there. Just in your presence, it says so much that they care about you, and that just your effort in coming over means a lot to them. So I think we can take that lesson away. But anyway, so the three friends have been sitting with Job for a week. They didn't say a word. They just were there. And now Eliphaz decides he's going to talk. And so in the first few verses of chapter 4, he kind of plays on Job's past, because he says to Job something like, "Listen, buddy, you've you've been the one that's been doling out the advice. you've been one that people come to when they have a problem or they have an issue or they have a question. You've been a resource for many other people, and now you're in a pickle, and now you're down and out. What gives? Come on, suck it up, is kind of what Eliphaz begins with. And then he proceeds to really kind of accuse, well, not kind of, he accuses Job of having done something wrong to deserve his pain and suffering. And of course, Eliphaz, like Job, is not privy to God and to the scheme of, maybe I shouldn't use that word, to the plan of God and Satan. Neither of them know that. So I think we kind of excuse both of them for what they say because they don't know those circumstances, but nonetheless, this is where they find themselves. And so he just kind of gets nasty with Job and accuses him and said, hey, buddy, people suffer for a reason. And usually if you're suffering, you've done something wrong. So he doesn't say, Eliphaz doesn't say own up to it, but he's insinuating that. And really, he does it in a very unloving way. And I think we're going to find out as we go on and listen to the other two friends also. They're pretty unsympathetic and they're pretty unloving in what they say to Job at a time when that's what Job needs is love and support and compassion. And they don't give any of that. I kind of chuckle about that in a little bit because this is kind of what guys do too. We tend to think people come to us for an answer when maybe people don't want an answer. Maybe, if Vicki talks to me and she's got this challenge or problem and she's talking to me about it, I can guarantee you that okay, this is a fault I have, but I can guarantee you that my mind is already beginning to think, well, this is how you could solve that problem. This is how you could get around that. This is how you could overcome that. My mind is already running that way, and actually guys are wired that way. But you can see it in Job's three friends. This is exactly what they're doing. They see Job's plight, and they try to figure out, this is your way out. This is how you can get out of that. This is how you can solve the problem. So perhaps we can cut them some slack because we understand that. But nonetheless, this is where we find ourselves. And so Job listens. He sits there and listens to it, and he soaks it in. But then he comes back, and in his response to Eliphaz, we see that he's not having any of it. Eliphaz really, like Job's wife says, why don't you just curse God and die? He's not having it from Eliphaz. He said he maintains his not sinlessness. He doesn't say he doesn't sin. But God himself has commended him as being blameless and upright. And so Job maintains that. He says, I have not done anything to deserve this kind of suffering. But yet then, so he's confident in that, we could say. He expresses that clearly. But then it's like a switch flips, and he says, I just wish I could die. I just wish. The suffering is immense, it's intense, and I just, like in our readings before, I cursed the day in which I was born. Why did the knees receive me? Remember that? We read that earlier. Well, and today again he says, I just wish I could die. Let's just put an end to this misery. Because Eliphaz rubs it in. He talks about numerous children and great possessions and the restoration that his life would be. He would die full of vigor, I think the text tells us. And Eliphaz, his life is anything but vigor right now. His kids are dead. He's lost all of his possessions. And I kind of see where he might be coming from, right? What is there left to live for? Why don't you just let me die, Lord? And so, a couple things going on in the reading. One, Eliphaz is showing no love or sympathy, and that kind of makes me angry. And two, Job maintains his righteousness. Doesn't say sinlessness, but he maintains his righteousness. And yet he really kind of begs God to let him die. And that's pretty sad, isn't it? So we get kind of a full range of emotions in in these chapters tonight. And actually, I think as we go through our readings now, we're going to see that full range of emotions as we go on. So it's going to be kind of a reoccurring theme, I think. So, all right. Well, those are my thoughts on Job chapters 4 through 7. What are your thoughts? What are your takeaways? And do you agree with anything I said? Feel free to disagree with anything I said. This is how we begin conversation and the learning process, learning from one another. All right, once again, for our next reading, we'll read Job chapters 8, 9, and 10, and we'll continue our discussion then. So I wish you God's peace on this August 8th, 2023.